My name is Vidjay Beerepoot, and I've beaten the often bet by having long-term goals and never give up.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast, the show where we feature unusual success stories to help us get unstuck and see our life's work from a new perspective. Help us get out of that rut that we're in. Are your goals big enough? Are you chasing after something that you could consider your life's work? Or are you, like me, still searching for that unique combination of awesomeness, your ikigai, if you will? Well, stay tuned either way, because today's guest is Vidjay Beerepoot, a man who is a composer for Disney and some major motion pictures. We'll talk about how he set the right goals and chased them down with relentless persistence, setting his targets in spans of 20 years, not 20 days. It's such excellent stuff for someone who's as impatient as me. His story is nothing short of remarkable. He packed up and moved to LA with a dream, and now he's making that very big dream a very big reality. So here is world-class composer Vidjay Beerepoot. Welcome to the podcast, Vidjay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So you have been doing a lot of really cool stuff. I've been watching what you've been doing from afar, and it's really interesting, and it just seems to be growing on Instagram, all these other things. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you're exactly doing. What's your career arc, if you will?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a composer. I make music for movies and TV shows, and I'm in Los Angeles right now for about 11 years. I grew up in Holland. I was actually adopted from India when I was a baby, when I was a few weeks old, and then I grew up in the Netherlands. I started in the theater world when I was very young, and I was always in elementary school. I was always creative, making I loved drawing and do all kinds of stuff. And then I made it into a serious career, and that's why I'm here now.
Wow, okay. So did you always know that you wanted to be a composer? Was that something that was always in the back of your mind?
I always, when I was very young, my parents had an old organ in the living room. So I was always trying to to create some sound out of that, some music. So I took some piano lessons, and when I was about 4 or 5, I remember that I was looking at movies, Hollywood movies at the time, and I was like, yeah, I wanna do that. I wanna be in Hollywood. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought at the time I was thinking of acting maybe.
Okay.
And I was acting also in elementary school. I was writing plays. I was just this weird kid that they had to. I had to really
the misfit.
I was always doing creative things, and then we had all those breaks. But I wouldn't want to go outside to play with all the other kids. I was just writing plays and drawing and things. And then at some point the teachers had to force me to get a break, which I
right.
So I didn't know. I was always working. I was always playing music. I was always playing in bands. Then when I was a little older, I was just doing a lot of playing in orchestras, classical orchestras, and jazz. So, and then that with the theater, I started to act on the stage when I was a kid, and I really just love the creative process of making something together. And then later, when after high school, first of all, when I was in high school, I was about 17 years old, and then I got really sick. I got meningitis, so it was pretty serious. And but luckily, I got out of that super healthy, which is kind of a miracle in itself. Because I was in the hospital for a very long time, and it wasn't good. And that experience definitely changed my look on, I would say, life. And after that, I was still in high school. I was like, oh, maybe I should become a doctor because, they saved me or they made me better, and then I want to do something back. And then I also seriously considered space engineering, which is something very different. In Holland has a really good university that has a really great program, and a few of my friends actually went on and to do that program. and I was seriously considering it. And then I thought, you know what? At that time, at the end of high school, I was already doing so much music for theater at that time, and then playing in bands. I had my own band and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what? I think I just need to do what I really love. And so I made a really conscious decision to pursue that career. But I also knew that okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm just going to have to do it like 100%, like 1,000%.
All in, yeah.
So then I went to study in Utrecht in Holland for about 4 or 5 years for my master's. And during that program, I started to develop my love for film, because at the time when I started that program in year 2000, that was basically the only program that had you could do something with composition and music other than like going to conservatory, and I didn't want to spend my whole life on one instrument like the piano.
What was the program called?
It's called music technology.
Music technology.
At the time, but the
I would have
time
loved
changed
that.
it.
That was what I was looking for. Yeah, that would have been what I wanted.
Yeah, it was really great because it was the only course that had like something to do with like composing music for theater, dance, installations, like art installations, and also like film and sound design, all kinds of things. So it's kind of like a broad program. So I'm very happy that I did that. But then after that, I already worked while I was like at that school. I didn't want to wait to intern in my third year, so I started doing that in my first year, and then that led to a lot of things. So by the end, when I graduated there, I already was like super busy. And I always had this thought about LA, about Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was so busy, that kind of faded a little bit back to the background. And then I worked for a few years in Holland. I did like movies and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. And then I soon, I realized that, well, you know what? If I'm going to pursue a career into being a composer for film, because at that point I was like, yeah, this is what I really want to do, then I have to change something. Because the reason is that when I started in the theater world, I love working with people. I'm very social. I really love creating something together. And in the theater world, as a composer, then you're kind of like part of the creation process. So you're kind of making everything together. With the film, in the film world, it's a little bit different. It's more technical, and you as a composer, you come like later in the process, and you don't even meet all the people at the production. It's all post production. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be a film composer, if I'm going to stay in Europe or at least Holland, the industry is pretty small, and that also means that the budgets are lower, and that also means that because the budgets are lower, I wouldn't be able to hire a whole team of people that I can work with, like in the theater world, like to have my own team and work with musicians and orchestras and all that kind of stuff, and that with the things I really love, because it can be really lonely. And I was like, well, if I'm going to stay here in Holland and pursue this career, what's going to happen is I'm going to end up like sitting in my bedroom, like basically, or my studio, and then like isolated from the rest of the world, make my music, everything, at home, and then send it out, and that's it, and then move on to the next thing.
That's the curse of content creators around the world right now. We're all isolated in our little studios. We've got our video cameras, we've got our audio speakers. We're all
full circle, right? Like,
yes, it is.
So I thought I need to learn how to write for orchestra, and because when I made this conscious decision when that I wanted to do this career, I thought, well, I'm only going to aim for the best, because it's already gonna be too hard to actually do this. So my only option was like, okay, I'm just gonna aim for the best I can possibly, achieve, And I mean that's basically being here. So that's why I came here to study at USC. They have a great program for music, for film scoring, and I stayed here, and that's like 11 years ago.
Hold up, hey. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I did it, so that's kind of weird. Anyways, we're going to take a little break from the program right now, and we're going to remind you that if you like this podcast, it's time to support it, folks. Leave 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Write a nice review. Support it where you find it. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all of the things that will help it grow. Contribute. If you know somebody who has an unusual success story, recommend them to be a guest on the podcast. Or if you have an unusual success story, reach out so that you can be on the podcast. Otherwise, I would just love to hear from you. Help me grow this podcast with you guys. I would really, really appreciate it. So again, no big speech. We're not going to do anything too crazy. Back to the show. How old were you when you went to the USC program?
28.
28. Okay, so a bit later. And there was a gap, obviously, between your studies, between your going to music technology and USC, right? Or were they right on top of each other?
No, so I graduated in 2005 from Utrecht. Then I worked for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I came here. So then because I was always busy and I had a pretty nice life. I was living in Haarlem next to Amsterdam, and I had a nice house. I had friends. I had work, and was close to family. So everything was going pretty well. And then, but still, somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, there's more. There's something more. Yeah, I can do more.
You can be more.
But I can't do it here. And then the financial crisis hit in 2008. And that was the first time that I didn't have much work. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll just go to LA. I've never visited before. So I thought, let's just check it out and see if this is a city I could live in. So I went there for all my savings. I booked a trip. I didn't really know anyone. So I came here for, this was in 2009. I came here, 2009. I came here for 3 months, just looked around and was like, I think I could live here. And then I went back to Holland. It was still kind of quiet with work. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And then I thought, well, how I'm going to do it? Because you can just move there. But I thought, well, I'm just going to do this program. And actually, it was the perfect age because I already had this background and experience and the basic understanding of, technical understanding and all that kind of stuff. So by doing that program, we had we were with 20 people, and some people in my class, they had never basically touched a computer. They would just only pencil, write on paper. They come from Broadway.
Oh, wow.
So for them, they had to learn about Logic or Pro Tools or something like that, like the music software. For me, it was like the opposite. I wanted to learn how to write for orchestra. I knew already.
Old school. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great because we could help each other, and at that time, 28, I really knew what my gaps were in my music education. So I went there with a really clear vision of okay, this is what I want to learn. This is what I already can do, and that was absolutely the best decision of my life.
Fascinating. Well, there's so much to dive into. That's really cool so far. So I want to start with, was music something that you brought to your parents? Did you insist on it, or did they put you in those lessons? Did they force it on you, or did you tell them, this is what I'm going to do, as a kid, as a small kid?
I think they saw me always playing on this little organ.
Yep.
And I think they I don't know how it went, but they just said, oh, maybe you should just go on music lessons. So I did that, and I just fell in love with that. And I was just always playing music everywhere on wherever I could. Accompany people on the piano, playing in elementary school with my friends, composing things. And I was very fortunate that my parents were always very supportive in, letting me do whatever I wanted to do because they saw that I was pretty serious about it. So yeah, I'm very, very happy that they let me do that.
That's really cool. So, for the people listening at home, I'd like to point out that you're currently working for Disney so that they know that we're going to get to there from this path, which is pretty amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment for anybody. Did you feel that you had talent? Did you ever think, or did you think you were not talented as a kid? Did people around you think that you had talent?
I I think that people around me, they all saw me as someone who was always creative, always making music, always drawing, always creating things. So I think the people around me saw that. For myself, I was just, I don't know, I didn't really care about other people at the time. I was just more focused on, it came kind of naturally, and I just focused on creating things, and I just loved it. And I think one of the things for me, I think if I knew if I was talented, I think I knew that I would be able to keep growing, because that's for me. That's what's life about. Just keep growing in every aspect of life. It's gonna be work or personal life or anything else, and that's my goal is just to keep growing and just keep improving.
I completely agree.
And I think if it comes to talent, uh, I think if I would have chosen to go into space engineering or become a doctor or become an animator or something like that, because I love drawing, that I would probably be equally successful as I am now, just because I have this drive. I have a lot of interest in all kinds of things. Music is just a thing that naturally happened, but it could also be something else. I mean, I always say like, if one day I wake up and like I don't like this anymore, then I just do something else, and I find something else to put all my energy in. I mean, that's also actually one of my goals, but we can talk about that later. But music is not the only thing I mean, it's the main thing, but it's not the only thing I plan to do in the future.
I raise my hand on that one. That's me in a nutshell. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah, I did music for a while, and now I'm doing another thing. So I get it.
Are you still doing music, or?
In some capacity, I do mix engineering for artists, like pop, dance projects. I also mentor some people with DJing because I got very good as a DJ. But I felt that I didn't have the talent as a producer, and that was what was needed for me to go forward in the dance music world. I knew I could DJ as well as anybody, but I couldn't produce as well as anybody. I couldn't play the piano or guitar or anything like that. So I felt like I was constantly bumping up against the ceiling. So I wanted to do something that came more naturally to me, or something that I was, let's say, better at as a kid. And I kind of went back to the roots for myself. And I've always loved dance music more than life itself since I was 10 years old. Listening is still the number one thing. But if I look back on my talents, I was always writing funny things. I wrote plays. I was acting in plays. I wrote and acted in plays. And it was always easy for me to write a joke or say the right thing in the moment, and other people had a hard time with that. Whereas in music, I'd play something. I remember I played something for my choir teacher in high school. I was like, here's a song I wrote. And he's like, oh, that melody is the same as this other thing that I should have known, like a Christmas song that but I didn't even notice that. Or like somebody will say, oh, you're playing a B flat and that should be an A. I've never seen music in that way. It's always been about like frequencies and energy to me, never notes or chords.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, and if you talk about talent, talent, I think, like, to be successful, you have to have like different kinds of talents. I mean, I know plenty of people that are, for example, great artists or writers. Could be music or filmmakers or whatever. But they are not successful because they maybe lack some talent of being a business person or promote themselves. I think it has to be. You have to be successful. You have to have a certain mix of different talents that will make you successful. And the actual thing, in my case, music, is might not even be the most important thing. It has to meet a certain threshold. But above that, it also comes to other skills you have to have.
Right. And obviously for you, that threshold is very high. If you're composing for Disney, you've reached a pretty high technical proficiency. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. But okay, let's talk about the business side, because this is fascinating. I love the intersection of art and business, how creative people make a living and navigate those things. So you had a talent, you were in theater, which I totally understand. My best friends were from theater as well. That was my jam. I also hate being alone. I love connecting with people. I think we have a lot in common there. So you're doing this stuff, you're writing stuff for plays, you're getting all that done, and you are experiencing some small success, but it's maybe not monetary success. It's just you getting the satisfaction of, I wrote something and we're acting it out. When did you start thinking that, oh, maybe I can earn some money from this? And what was that for you?
Well, when I decided to pursue this career, I thought two things. One thing is this is going to be really, really difficult. I wanna achieve the best thing possible, and it's going to be really hard. So that's one thing that's always been in my mind. Because sometimes it is hard. In the last decade I've been here, it hasn't been always easy, but I always knew, okay, this is just part of the journey and part of the just growing and the other thing is that I do want to live comfortably. I don't really need much, but I don't, especially in LA. We were just talking about it before we recorded, how expensive everything is.
Yep.
I know people here in LA that are musicians, and they're a little older than me, and they still, they're still struggling, and they still are, living in a small studio. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I mean, it's one thing to want that, of course, but I really constantly think about, okay, how can I turn this into a serious business that I can do the things I want to do at the highest level, but also make a living out of it. Because that's the other thing. If I would have stayed in Holland, the things I'm doing now, it's really hard to make a living out of this there.
So what the things that you're doing now? All right, so you talked about building a team, coming out here, growing, which all is really fascinating stuff, and it's exactly what I want to talk about. What kind of stuff do you feel like you can do? Well, what are you doing now? Do you have a team, first of all?
I work the most of the time I work alone, but I have a team of people that's surrounding me if I need some help. So the moment it gets a little bit busy, I just have a few people that I can call right away and they can help. So I feel like this little network. It took me about 10 years. It's really hard to find people that are like-minded, easy to work with, and that are really good. And I feel that I have this team now, finally, over the years. So whenever I'm really busy, I can just call them and say, "Hey, I need some help with this," and they know exactly how I work. They know exactly what needs to be done. We don't have to talk about it much. So, for example, for movies, normally I mix everything myself. I do everything myself.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I just try to do as much as I can. But for example, if there is a live orchestra, or and there's no time, I definitely delegate it to someone else, like a great mixer, a friend of mine, and he does that part. And when it's going to be recorded, I have orchestrators that help me. I mean, I basically do everything myself, but the time pressure is sometimes so high that there's just no time for me to do everything well, and I rather spend that time on writing.
So what is the business model then? How do you earn money? What does that look like, and in your world?
Well, it's very interesting because I when I was young, I started my business as a composer or music producer back in Holland. I was like, okay, well, for the next couple of decades, I'm just gonna focus on my skills. I'm not gonna think about earning as much as I can, or I'm just gonna make sure that I'm okay, that I can just pay the bills, that I don't have. I mean, I've never been in debt, and I think that in itself is it's a good accomplishment, especially here.
Absolutely.
And especially
yes.
So. But I was always very aware of like, okay, how can I just pay all the bills, but I really need to make profit. I just gonna spend about like, I don't know, 20 years to really get this skill, to really get the skills and to really understand and really get really good in what I do. And then I thought, about 20 years ago, well, if one day if I work for the studios, then the financial part of it will be okay. So, and last year that finally happened. But my focus was really on the first 2 decades on just getting really good in what I do. So I just did anything I could do, just to practice and practice and practice. And I did earn some money, so because that's what kept me alive, and it was just enough. But I just did everything I can to just up my skills, and that's sometimes because I do a lot of talks around the world, and students come up to me and they ask questions, and when I mention that the first for a long time you're not going to earn that much, or you have to do things for free. I remember my accountant when I was just starting in Holland. She thought I was crazy. Like, you work for free? I said, well, yeah, that's kind of like how it works in the beginning, and that that will lead to something else. But you have to really understand that, I think, and think long term. I think that's the key word, because most people now, they think, oh, I also want to go to Hollywood, and then they think like in 3 years they will be doing whatever big project.
Sure.
But obviously that's not how it works. So I think the keyword is long term, with goals and yeah.
So are you are you an employee of Disney now, or do they pay you per composition, or like how does that literally work for you?
So for Disney, I am basically a vendor.
Okay.
And so we for the Minnie Mouse show I'm doing now, it's just a deal where you get paid per episode, and there's a number, like we're doing 2 seasons, so it's just a set amount. And
2 seasons up front, they're like, we want you to do this.
Yeah, they
contract.
said, like, I did the pitch. So,
Okay.
I've been pitching for a very long time, and that's also another whole world.
Yeah.
And I finally got chosen to be the lead composer, and they said, okay, we're gonna do 40 episodes.
Congrats.
And that's 2 seasons. So, yeah, thank you. And they said, well, per episode you get this amount. So, and then I also became a corporation, just for tax benefits.
Of course. Yep.
And then I became a vendor for Disney. I also work on another Disney show where I'm writing additional music, and we're in the 2nd season now. So I started that like about a year ago, but that I am paid by the composer, because the composer gets paid by Disney.
So you're that guy's go-to person in that scenario.
Yes.
You have go-to people for your projects, and you are somebody else's go-to person for that project.
Yeah, and
Cool.
especially the long form Disney shows, because Minnie Mouse, what I'm doing is are shorts. They're like about 3 minutes long,
Okay.
uh, which sounds short, but it's a lot of work.
I
But
completely believe you. Yeah.
the other show I'm doing, it's called Mira Royal Detective, and Amrita Vaz, he is the composer, and those shows are about uh, like 20 minutes. So that's a lot more music,
Whoa.
and it's almost impossible to do that on your own because it's just the time pressure is so high. So like for those shows, most composers have a team of writers. So we have like on Mira, we have Amrita composers, me and Shirley Song. So yeah, we're the three of us, and we just divide the music.
Okay.
So that's a different structure um, that I get paid by the composer.
I see.
And then all the other, like I have a company in Holland where all the European projects flow through, and it has to do with tax credits there. And in here with my corporation here, yeah, everything goes into all the US projects, and also non-European projects go to my corporation here.
Interesting. Would you say that you've reached a point where you no longer have to pitch? Do they know you well enough that they come to you, or will you always have to pitch?
Well, that's interesting. I'm still doing a lot of pitches. It's, I mean, I'm now that I'm kind of part of the Disney family. It, it it does. I do get pitches that are high profile now, that no one else gets. So that's like internally. But like for example, for Minnie Mouse, I think there were like 70 people that pitched. So what a studio does, I think, is they send out a pitch to all the agencies, and all the agencies they send it to their composers. So they collect like a bunch of demos, and then they just pick someone, and it's really hard. I mean, I've been doing more than 30 pitches to actually get my first gig, and it's a lot of work.
Because is
to
that
do
like
a
a
pitch.
finished product, a couple minutes of music? What
Yep.
is a pitch?
Yeah, it depends a little bit by the studio, but
Okay.
for Disney, they ask you to score to write music for a little for an episode or for a scene, and it has to sound as good as it gets, and it just and it's just a lot of work. It's just really a lot of work. It took me more than a week to do the mini pitch, and that's just a week of unpaid work. And I've done that like 30 times,
30 times.
For the last 5-6 years.
And to get this gig, you had to beat out not only 70 other people, but 70 agencies with maybe many people. Is that what it was, you think?
I mean,
Maybe
yeah, it's kind
more?
of crazy. It's kind of crazy to think about why I got the gig. It's sometimes also like, yeah, just the person that listens just has to like what you do, and I still keep pitching. But since I got that show, Disney asked me to pitch for some really high profile things and there were just a number of people inside Disney that were allowed to pitch for that. So I feel like I'm like a little step up, so I can pitch for
Nice.
really high profile things now.
That's
kind of
fantastic.
like closed off from the rest. Yeah.
Do you think that you've reached the limit of what you're able to do in terms of bandwidth, or like how much more work could you take on right now?
Well, it's a good question because I'm really busy. I'm finished. I'm still working on some European movies right now while I'm doing the shows, and just that's because of the scheduling with the pandemic, it has been throwing everything around. But the thing is that if you get a studio gig here, at least it pays enough to hire other people to help you. So I'm actually pretty fast in working, I have I spend a lot of time, like a lot of time, to improve my technical skills and my setup, so I can work really really fast. And that's a whole other thing. So I can really work fast. But if it's gonna be too much, again, I have my team. I can have people help, and I also help other people. We help each other. I just a few days ago, so I was helping my really good friend Mauricio Yazigi. He's also a composer, and helped him spot a movie. So just like talk about his movie, and then he helped me on another movie. He helped me on Minnie Mouse to play guitar. So we just all kind of help each other, and it's just also really
Giant
nice to
happy
work
family.
with people. Yeah, it's just really nice because otherwise, it can be a little lonely sometimes. So it's nice to have this little community. We can all help each other.
So let's talk about that real quick. Settle this for me. Mac or PC? Go.
Mac.
Mac all the way. See, I knew it. Somewhere out there, there's somebody listening who's going to say you're full of shit for that, but I know.
Well,
so,
I
which
used
Mac?
to be PC.
What kind of computer?
I do. What was that?
You must need the best, I'm imagining, with the sound libraries that you must have. You must have terabytes of sound libraries.
Well, it's actually not too. Well, yeah. It's about 2 terabytes of samples.
Okay.
But so I was while I was waiting for the Mac Pro to come out, and that years ago, I bought an iMac Pro. So and then I use an iMac and a MacBook Pro as slave computers. So it's all hooked up, and then I have a few other computers. But that's like my main setup is 3 computers
at the same
and
time. A Mac Pro, an iMac, and a MacBook Pro all working at the same time.
Yeah, an iMac Pro, an iMac.
Oh, I see.
And
yes.
a MacBook Pro. So
That's
the iMac
cool.
Pro is my host. This is the main computer, and then everything, like all the samples, they are streamed from the other computers. So it's all offload. So the great thing is I have like an insane template. I build an insane template, and I have like huge sessions. But if I look at all the performance, well, everything is blowing away. It's just all the 3 computers are like idling at 10% capacity. So it's like,
that's a dream.
and I wouldn't be able to if it was on one computer. So I really have this great system where I can do, have a lot of power, and it's really nicely distributed. And that's also possible because the software is, gotten really better.
And you're working in Pro Tools?
I work in Logic Pro.
Oh, okay.
That's my main DAW. But I also use Pro Tools for deliveries and sometimes to record stuff.
That's so cool.
Well, I'm a Cubase. Like when I started, I had PC and I had Cubase. That's where I started on the Atari. I don't know if you remember that, like long ago. Then I had PC, Cubase, and then when I went to school there, they taught
Cubase.
Logic. Yeah, so I loved Logic, and then Apple bought Logic, and then I made the switch.
Good call. Yeah, I did the same. The first version of Logic I ever bought was when it was owned by eMagic as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. There was.
I think the first time I touched software was Cubase on the Atari.
That's pretty old school. That's going back.
Yeah, 80s.
Well, you touched as well on, so the loneliness of creating. Now, more than ever, we're seeing this. Obviously, I don't know if you saw Bo Burnham's Inside, his great special on Netflix where he created an entire Netflix special from inside a room during the pandemic. The man is a genius, obviously. More and more of us have turned our music studios into content capture studios. We have cameras, we have lights, we have microphones. You have sound libraries, you have entire symphony orchestras and choirs at your fingertips that sound really great. I know you have all of these tools. So one person sitting alone in a room can do more than ever before in the history of humankind. You can score things. How do you feel that will change? Obviously, during the pandemic, you had to do it remotely. Do you feel that it will just stay that way? Do you feel that you will ever have to go back to working in a physical location on these things?
Well, for me personally, I enjoy working with other people. So I would
Same.
hope we can do that, and especially when it comes to music, I love recording music. So I love to, not only because it sounds better if you record a real orchestra or a band or something like that, because the samples are getting really good, and I also really always try to. I mean, it also took me a long time to perfect my ability to recreate the sound of a real orchestra. So I think I'm pretty close. So probably if you will hear it under a movie or something like that, then most people don't even realize that it's not live.
I believe you.
So, so the thing is that if I want to have a better result than my samples, then the musicians have to be really good. But then the result will be better. But the other thing is that musicians, they add something that I cannot add. They have their own. They give it they bring some extra life into it. I mean, I can do a lot of things myself, so with a lot of editing, but it's also exhausting. So I rather write something and then let the musicians play, and they come up with like stuff that I never thought of.
Right.
And that's also just the great thing about working together with musicians. So for me personally, I don't think that will go away. But that's for more high profile things. Yeah. For other than that, then I think the software is getting better and it's more accessible and affordable. Yeah. So it's, in that sense, it's also easier for people to just create music, but doesn't mean that people can write better.
No, there's still 20 years of work that has to go into it.
Yeah, exactly.
At least, or maybe a lifetime. So much stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the nice thing about music. It will only get better, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I think it will. As technology improves, it'll all improve. You'll be able to do more, and your computers, you'll be able to do it all from one computer. I mean, it will get better. I think
the end of the day, it's also about your own creativity, because you have creativity still comes from someone's head, someone's mind. To truly come up with something new, it really, you really have to think.
True.
Instead of just mindlessly sitting behind software.
So
I really believe that.
I believe that too. Here's an interesting question for you. I'm reading a book from William Goldman. He's one of the most famous screenwriters that ever lived. My favorite screenwriter. He wrote The Princess Bride, Ghost in the Darkness, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, all of these classic films and books. There's a book that he talks about Hollywood. I think it came out in 1996, but he made a book, and it's such an excellent read. But he talks about how screwed up Hollywood basically is. And he basically talks about how impossible it is that almost any movie ever get made. There's so much that can go wrong at any time. If this happens, then the whole movie will go away. If the star backs out, the whole movie will disappear. So what role do you think luck has played in your making it this far, a random chance?
I mean, I believe that you can definitely create your luck, or at least create your possibilities. They say when opportunity meets preparation, and luck, there is some luck involved, but I really believe that if you really want to do something, you just keep trying it, then it will happen. A lot of people give up at a certain point for whatever reason. But I think you can create an environment where you increase your luck, your chances of luck. I really believe that, because I've been doing everything for so long, and that all led up to where I'm today. And sometimes things I didn't even know that would lead to something else. And is there luck? Yeah, I mean, I guess there is luck, but it's also a lot of hard work behind it. I always think, like, for me, luck would be that I never go out, I never do anything, and I sit at home, and then the phone rings, and then, this is Disney, do you want to score a movie?
Right.
so that's luck for me. But yeah, I think I really believe that hard work and persistence that will increase your luck.
Absolutely. So, what is the most unusual turn your career has taken, or what's the most surprising or unusual thing that's happened along the way to here?
I think it is moving here because it took me a while to actually um, think about like, okay, I'm gonna go to LA. I'm just gonna pursue it there and study there. It took me about, I don't know, a year or more to really think about it, and I didn't really know if that was the right thing to do. But by doing that, that really changed everything. And the thing is that it changed other things than I thought it would be changing. Uh, I thought, okay, I'm just gonna do the music, but my whole view on life has changed. I look very differently at Holland and Europe right now, and that's just because so many people from all around the world come here to LA. So I made so many friends from other cultures. So you learn a lot about other cultures and how other things are, and by being here and meeting so many people from all around the world, I have friends from everywhere. It really changed my view on how I look at the world, and also like how I look back to Holland and Europe. You grow up in a culture, and that becomes the normal thing. If you get out of it, and suddenly you're thrown into a different culture, and you meet people from other cultures, then you just have a very broader view of life itself. You learn to appreciate things more. You understand things better. I mean, that's what for me that was definitely the case. So it's really that maybe that was maybe the most interesting thing. Not even the music, just like
You learn to love tacos, taco trucks. You can't live without
exactly.
Mexican food now, I
Yeah,
guarantee it.
no,
You, what,
exactly.
do you ever see yourself going back, or you say, I'm going to be here as long as possible?
I things are going well, and while things are going well, I tend to stay here. I wouldn't say I'll never go back, but at this point, I don't see myself going back to Europe. I mean, I love Europe. I'm from there, but the opportunities are so huge here, and I've been doing this for a while, and now, like, if I got my first studio gig, and this is for me, this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
'Cause
it sounds like it.
now it really is gonna start, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm in, and now finally I can start my career, even though I've been doing this for
I
20
completely
years.
understand. You've been working this hard to get to the point of a career. And I think a lot of people are
Right.
doing that. I think myself included, I'm working at the moment to build another career, but I wouldn't say that I'm at the front door. You're at the front door, it seems. And the next step is what? Hans Zimmer? Is that the target? You're one of those kinds of composers, or?
I mean, my goals are I wanna work on Star Wars, and I want to write that music and Marvel, or big movies. I mean, that's what I grew up with, and that was my aim because I want to just do the best thing I can, and now, like, by getting into Disney, it definitely was like a confirmation for me that, okay, well, this is clearly it's working.
Yeah, it is.
So
You're close. You're getting
and
there.
yeah, and because people say, like, in LA, they say, well, I went to school here in 2010, and the teacher said, well, don't give up too fast. Just look at everything in 5 years from now. So 5 years went by, and then I was still, I'm just doing a lot of European projects because I still had that going while I was here. It kept me alive here. And then after 5 years, I was like, well, yeah, things are going okay. And then an agency, a big agency, approached me to represent me, and I was like, wow, okay, well, this is like a catalyst,
The
for me to
yeah,
okay, yeah, that's a
prophecy
confirmation.
was
Maybe
foretold.
yeah, because I was like, well, I don't know, should I stay here or not? Because at what point, if things are not improving, are you gonna say, well, I tried it, didn't really work out, and go back? That's hard to know, because one point, one part is like, yeah, you want to keep trying until something happens, but you also don't want to wait too long, and then
Then you end
yeah,
up broke and you're 50 years old
exactly.
and you say, what did I do with my life?
So in a weird way, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, uh, this agency, I actually always wanted to be with that agency where I'm now. They approached me and they wanted to help my career. So I was like, okay, well, this is a good sign that at least I'm not uh, not bad or something like that.
No.
And and that took about, and then 5 years later, I got into the studio. So it really, I really see the progress,
Mm.
and again, it's a long term thing. You have to, and it goes up and down, but in the grand scheme, things go up. But it's um, yeah, as long as I can just do the things I love here, I would definitely want to stay here.
I completely agree with you. I understand that. And yeah, you're so close. I mean, sure, you do Disney for a while, but then you do these little things. You're a hop, skip, and a jump, as we say, from getting just that one bigger project. Or you do a movie, and that movie breaks through. You just got to get one of those things, and you're so close. And then
And
you'll be inviting us to the premiere, and then it'll all be
exactly.
good, right?
I mean, for
knew it.
me, it's funny because when I started pitching about 5 years ago, I got the agency, my agent, and they started sending me pitches because otherwise it's hard to get those pitches. It all goes through the agency. So I did my first pitch. It was for DreamWorks, and I was super excited, and I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, and then the next one I didn't get, and the next one I didn't get, and the next one I didn't get, and so I was like, I wanted to make a point. One second, I forgot what I wanted to say.
Or the timing, 10 year, 5 years, 10 years, agency, catalysts.
Yeah,
DreamWorks,
okay,
a bigger
I
picture.
know.
You'll get
So
a bigger picture that's a success.
yeah, no, so okay, I'll start again.
Okay.
Um, so when the agency approached me, I started to get the pitches from them, and I did my first one. It was for DreamWorks, and I did a lot of work on that pitch, and I didn't end up getting the pitch, so I was a little disappointed. And then I did the next one, I didn't get that. The next one didn't get, and so forth. So after like 10, I was like, okay, well, I'll just keep doing them. And I asked my agent, do you think this is really gonna work? And he said, well, yeah, don't worry about it. It's a matter of time. It's really, just a numbers game. So a few times I got really close. I was like the last two. And I didn't get that. And I was super disappointed at the time. But when I got my mini show, if I look back, I think this is the best show I can ever have, because it's like the old legacy of Disney. So I feel
True.
very honored and very special to actually make
That's so
music
true.
for Mickey and Minnie Mouse, and that's so it's in a weird way. I mean, I guess you can always say that if you're looking back, but everything happens at the right moment. It took me about 30 something pitches to get to the Disney one, but now I have it, and it's the best thing I could have wished for.
So cool.
And so yeah, it is really interesting. So it's interesting how those things go, but I also, because of that, like looking at my career in the last 20 years, I really like trust that everything will work out. So I just keep doing it. things don't really work out at the moment, okay, just go on to the next one, and it will work out. I mean, that's my experience, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that. I just trust that things will happen at the time they should happen.
How do you think that, we'll get into the final bits here. Thank you for everything. How do you think that somebody who has been grinding for a long time and they're not seeing those results, how do you think they can feel in the moment when they need to keep working day in, day out? How do you think that they can have that trust before they have those kinds of outward signs or validation?
I think one of the most important things is what I learned is that you have to feel like happy and in the moment. It can be a little like if you do music and being here, it can be a little intense. I've been, you work like crazy, and you're basically miserable because you're working so hard. You never get rest. You never go out in the world or do things just to get to obsessively have like pursue this goal that seems to constantly go further into the distance. And I've been there. I mean, I've been here and working like crazy. I didn't really do anything else. And it just made me kind of miserable. And I was like, I don't want that. I just want to pursue the career, but I also want to feel good. So, because in the end of the day, after, like if you then finally kind of get there in 10 years or 15 years, I mean, was it really worth to feel miserable for 10 years to kind of like get to the next step? I mean, I don't think so. But that's a really difficult thing to realize, and it took me years. But that's my view right now. It's like I want to just feel, good whatever I do. Even if the show I'm doing now is the last show I will ever do, for whatever reason, I still want to feel good and happy, because that's in the end of the day, it's about how you feel, and that's. I think that's number one. You have to feel happy, and I think also if you kind of let it go, all that stress and all that that you want something, other things will happen. I mean, that's kind of what I felt. I was at a certain point, I was really stressed about. Okay, I want to really win a pitch, and then I kind of, pitch number 20. I was like, you know what? I'll just do them. I probably don't get it, but
Right.
it just made my life
do
so
it
much.
anyways.
Yeah, I do it
get
anyways. It just made my life so much,
I get it.
relaxed.
That's
And that's the other
insight.
thing. The other thing is like what we talked about earlier a little bit, is that I know that music, that's not the only thing I want to do, because I also want to do other stuff later, which I finally can, start thinking about.
What
that
kind
has,
of stuff?
Well, I wanted to. I don't know exactly how, but I wanted to give education to kids, maybe in India or poor countries, maybe with music related. So I'm working on those plans.
That's great. I love that.
And it's interesting because of the pandemic. When a pandemic hit and I was just here alone, I was thinking about my life and everything. And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty happy, but the music career is not the only thing that's going to make me fulfilled, because it's just stressful, and at the end of the day, it's just you're just making a movie. I mean, it's not to minimize it, but I think the fulfillment really comes if you really help other people, and by even thinking of that, my whole music career suddenly relaxed or something like that. Because it's if you're only focused on one thing, it can be really tense, and it's like, oh, it's the only thing I have. I mean, that's what I kind of had my whole life. Like, the music is the only thing I have. I need to succeed in that, and otherwise, there's nothing else. I don't really think about it like that necessarily, but I think a lot of people like, this is the only thing I have.
Yeah. I felt that before, for sure.
Yeah. So by having this other idea, which I can develop now by having to reach this goal in my music career. Um, the music career also relaxes a little bit more. It doesn't become this obsessive,
Not an all-encompassing
intense
thing.
Exactly, yeah, and that makes me just feel better.
Sure.
Because music is going to be still the number one thing, but that will go.
And there's more to
it will
life.
Continue.
Than
There's
that.
more to life, and
you know that.
And also by being here in LA. With a kind of a business mind, because I think that's the other thing. You have to have a business mind to work in the entertainment industry. That there's more possibilities to do other things beside that career too. So I do really believe that those two things are gonna give me all the fulfillment I want.
Sounds good. Well, I have one parting question for you. We've covered so much ground. Really awesome. I mean, I think your story is incredible, and I know a lot of people will as well. And you also get the distinct sense that your story is just beginning, which is really cool. I think in 5 months we'll do it again, and I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be very different. I have a feeling, in a good way. What do you think? I want to end on a profound piece of wisdom here. What do you think the path to happiness is?
You can cut out that silence.
Or maybe not. That's it. This is going to be the clip. It's just silence. There you go. I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be asking all the questions, right? I'd be telling you.
Yeah. That's funny. What is the path of happiness? I think the path of happiness is to do what you love. Because time goes by so fast that if you look back, if I look back, I really want to look back and say, well, this is I always been doing what I loved. I just didn't want to do anything else. And maybe that's not everyone is in that position to do that, but I do think you can change things. Change is difficult. A lot of people don't want to change, but if you're unhappy, change something. Because it can take a while. It can be scary change, but in the end, like it will improve. And time goes by fast. Another 5. I always look at myself like, what do I want to, where would I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? And then before I know, those 5 years are gone.
Yeah.
And the trap is not to think about that and let those 5 years go by.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I had those plans. But I always constantly aware and always asking myself, is this still what I like to do? Is this still, am I still happy? Then, I think that's a very important thing to evaluate how you feel.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. Well, there's been a lot of knowledge bombs here. Again, thank you for agreeing to do this. It's truly a pleasure to hear your story. I want people to be able to find, where can we see this show? Or maybe tell a little bit about where they can find your work. I'm sure you have an IMDb page that they can look up. What would you like people to see so that they can see what you're up to? Or, obviously they can follow you. We'll put up your handle, but whatever you want to promote, please go ahead.
Well, I obviously have a website. It's vidjaybeerepoot.com. And I have all the social media outlets like Instagram, Facebook, so people can follow me there. The Minnie Mouse show is currently on the Disney Channel right now. And there are several movies out there in theaters. Now they're opening up and festivals. So it's basically everywhere. But if you want to follow me, then you can just look me up on social media or my website.
Fantastic. Well, that is wonderful. We'll put all the stuff there. I think unless you have anything else, I'll end it here. thank you again, and we'll call it podcast officially over. Thank you so much for listening to the Beat the Often Path podcast. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know I'm going to be thinking about it for a very long time. If you have enjoyed these programs, understand that it takes a lot of work to put them together, to bring the guests out, to do all the stuff, to edit it, to make the video. You can't even imagine what it takes to put a single one of these out. You can help me support this by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing on Apple Podcasts, rating it 5 stars, leaving a nice review, subscribing on YouTube, following on Instagram at The Ross Palmer, doing anything that will help it grow, letting a friend know. Maybe there's somebody on this show that you think somebody should hear from. Send them my way so that we can help grow this thing. Again, I want you to be a part of this. It's something that we can grow together. So with that, I really appreciate you being here and listening to the end. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you in the next episode.